Dr. David Rodriguez had been working in the desert for 3 weeks straight. The hot sun beat down on his back every day as he carefully brushed sand away from ancient pottery pieces. He was an archaeologist who loved discovering old things that told stories about people who lived thousands of years ago. This particular dig site was different from others he had worked at. It was located in a remote part of Peru, far from any towns or cities. The local guides had told him strange stories about this area. They said people sometimes saw weird lights in the sky at night. David didn't believe in such things. He was a scientist who needed proof before believing anything. But on this Tuesday evening, something happened that changed everything he thought he knew about the world. David was packing up his tools for the day when his metal detector started making crazy noises. The device was beeping and clicking in ways he had never heard before. He tapped it a few times, thinking maybe the battery was dying. But the strange sounds continued. Then his radio started crackling with static. His GPS device began spinning. Wildly unable to find any satellites, even his digital camera was acting up, showing weird patterns on the screen instead of normal pictures. All his electronic equipment was going haywire at the same time. The sun was setting, painting the desert in beautiful orange and pink colors. David decided to walk back to his small camp tent. As he walked, he noticed something odd. The temperature was dropping much faster than usual. In desert areas, it gets cold at night, but this felt different. The air around him seemed to shimmer and move like heat waves, but in reverse. That's when he saw the lights dot at first. David thought they might be aircraft from the nearby military base. But these lights moved in ways that no plane or helicopter could move. They danced across the sky in perfect patterns, sometimes stopping completely in midair, then shooting off in different directions at incredible speed. The lights were beautiful. They pulsed with soft blue and white colors, almost like they were breathing. David stood there watching, completely mesmerized. He had never seen anything like this before in his life. As he watched, the lights began to come closer. They descended, slowly from the sky, moving in a graceful spiral pattern. David's heart started beating faster. Part of him wanted to run back to his tent, but another part of him was too curious to move. The lights landed about 50 feet away from where he stood. As they touched the ground, they began to fade, revealing something that made David's jaw drop. It looked like a small craft, but unlike any vehicle he had ever seen. It was smooth and elegant, with no visible engines or windows. The surface seemed to glow with its own inner light. David rubbed his eyes, thinking maybe he was seeing things. He had been working long hours in the hot sun. Maybe he was dehydrated or having some kind of hallucination. But when he looked again, the craft was still there. A section of the craft opened silently, like a door made of light itself.
Ow.
David held his breath as a figure stepped out. At first glance, it looked like a young woman, maybe in her 20s. But as she came closer, David noticed things that made his scientific mind spin with questions. Her skin had a subtle glow to it, like moonlight on water. Her hair was long and seemed to move even though there was no wind. And her eyes were the most incredible thing about her. They were larger than normal human eyes, and they seemed to hold depths that reminded David of looking at stars on a clear night. The woman walked toward David with smooth, graceful steps. She didn't seem threatening at all. In fact, there was something peaceful about her presence that made David feel calm instead of afraid. When she was about 10 feet away, she stopped and looked directly at him. David expected her to speak, but instead he heard a voice in his head. It was gentle and melodic, like wind chimes in a soft breeze. "Do not be afraid," the voice said inside his mind. "I have been watching you work. You seek truth about thee. Past, I can show you truths that will amaze you." David opened his mouth to speak, but no words came out. He was too shocked to form sentences. The woman seemed to understand his confusion and smiled warmly. "I know this is strange for you," she continued, speaking directly into his thoughts. "Your people call us many names. Some say aliens, others say angels. We are neither. We are simply travelers who have visited your world many times throughout history." She took a few steps closer, and David noticed she was wearing clothes that looked like they were made from the same material as her craft. smooth, flowing, and slightly luminescent. "My name is Luna," she said, this time speaking out loud. The voice was soft and had a musical quality to it. "I have been assigned to watch over this region. I have been waiting for someone like you, someone who seeks knowledge and has an open heart." David finally found his voice. You're really here? This isn't a dream?" Luna smiled again. "You are very much awake, Dr. Rodriguez. I know who you are. I have observed your work for many days. You treat the artifacts of ancient people with respect. You try to understand their stories. This tells me you might be ready to learn bigger truths." David looked around the desert, then back at Luna. Everything felt surreal, like he was living in a science fiction movie. At the same time, it felt completely real. He could feel the cool desert sand under his feet, smell the dry air, and hear the distant call of night birds. "What kind of truths?" David asked, surprised by his own courage. Luna's eyes sparkled with something that looked like excitement. "Truths about your world's hidden history, about the monuments and mysteries that your people have wondered about for thousands of years. About connections between your planet and others that most humans have forgotten." She gestured toward the horizon where the last light of sunset was fading into darkness. "But first, you must decide if you truly want to know. Once you learn these things, your life will never be the same. You will see your world through different eyes." David thought about her words. The scientist, he had always been curious about unsolved mysteries. The pyramids in Egypt, the stone circles in England, the giant heads on Easter Island, so many ancient wonders that seemed impossible for primitive people to create. "What would I have to do?" he asked. Luna's smile grew brighter. "Simply come with me. I will show you something that has been hidden in this desert for thousands of years. Something that your people and mine built together long ago." David felt a mixture of excitement and nervousness. This was the kind of discovery that archaeologists dream about their entire careers. But it was also terrifying because it challenged everything he thought he knew about human history. He looked at Luna's kind face, then at her amazing craft, then back at her eyes that seemed to hold the wisdom of ages. In his heart, he knew that this moment would define the rest of his life. "Okay," he said quietly. "Me." As the first light of dawn began to creep over the mountains, Luna led David through the desert in a direction he had never explored before. The sand beneath their feet felt different somehow, more solid and firm than the loose desert sand he was used to walking on. David kept stealing glances at Luna as they walked. In the growing daylight, she looked even more incredible than she had the night before. Her skin seemed to glow with a soft inner light. Her movements were so graceful that she barely seemed to leave footprints in the sand. "Where exactly are we going?" David asked, adjusting his backpack on his shoulders. Luna smiled and pointed toward a series of rocky hills in the distance. "To a place that has been hidden from human eyes for many centuries. But first, I must tell you more about my people and why we came to your world." As they walked, the landscape around them began to change in ways that made David question his own eyesight. The rocks seemed to shift color as the sun rose higher, and the air itself appeared to shimmer and dance. It was as if they were walking through a living painting that changed with every step. "Long ago," Luna began, her voice carrying easily on the morning breeze, "your planet was very different from what it is today. Humans were just beginning to form their first real civilizations. They had learned to grow food and build simple homes, but they were still struggling to understand the world around them." David listened carefully, his scientific mind trying to process everything she was telling him. "How long ago are we talking about?" "About 12,000 of your years," Luna replied. "During what your archaeologists call the end of the last ice age. That was when my people first arrived on Earth." They paused at the top of a small hill, and Luna gestured for David to look out over the desert below. The view was breathtaking. The early morning sun painted the landscape in shades of gold and amber, and David could see for miles in every direction. "We did not come as conquerors," Luna continued. "We came as teachers and helpers. My people have always believed that knowledge should be shared, not hoarded. We had been watching your world for many thousands of years, waiting for the right time to make contact." David sat down on a large rock, trying to absorb what she was telling him. But why? Why would your people want to help us? Luna's expression grew thoughtful. Because we see potential in humanity that you do not yet see in yourselves. Your people have incredible creativity and determination. You have the ability to love deeply and to sacrifice for others. These are rare qualities in the universe. She sat down beside him, and David noticed that even sitting on the rough rock, she moved with perfect grace. But your people also have a tendency to forget important things. You focus so much on the present that you lose connection with the wisdom of the past. What kind of help did your people give to ancient humans? David asked. Luna stood up and began walking again, and David hurried to follow her. We taught them about astronomy so they could navigate by the stars. We showed them how to build structures that would last for thousands of years. We shared knowledge about mathematics and engineering that helped them create monuments that still puzzle your modern scientists. As they walked, David began to notice something strange about their path. The ground beneath their feet seemed to be guiding them somehow. Small stones would catch his eye, leading him to step in certain directions. The shadows of rocks seemed to point the way forward. The pyramids in Egypt, David said suddenly. You're talking about the pyramids, aren't you? Luna nodded. The pyramids, yes. And also the stone circles in Britain, the temples in South America, the statues on the remote islands in the Pacific. All of these were built through cooperation between my people and your ancestors. David's mind was racing. As an archaeologist, he had always wondered how ancient people had managed to build such incredible structures with supposedly primitive tools. But why haven't we found any evidence of your people in the archaeological record? Because we were very careful, Luna explained. We knew that if we left too much evidence of our presence, it might interfere with humanity's natural development. We wanted to help, not to make your people dependent on us. They came to a narrow canyon between two tall rock formations. The walls were covered with symbols that David had never seen before, but somehow they seemed familiar. The symbols seemed to pulse with their own inner light, just like Luna's skin. These markings, David said, reaching out to touch one of the symbols. What do they mean? They are a form of writing that my people taught to certain humans long ago, Luna replied. They tell the story of our cooperation and mark the locations of important places. As David's fingers touched the symbol, he felt a warm, tingling sensation run up his arm. Suddenly, his mind was filled with images, flashes of ancient scenes that played out like a movie in his head. He saw groups of early humans working alongside. Tall, graceful beings who looked like Luna. They were moving massive stones with tools that seemed to defy gravity. They were studying the stars together, mapping the movement of planets and galaxies. They were sharing knowledge about healing plants and sustainable farming methods. I'm seeing things, David gasped, pulling his hand back from the symbol. Seeing the past? Luna nodded calmly. The symbols store memories. They were designed to share experiences with those who were ready to understand them. David stared at the canyon walls with new eyes. How many humans knew about your people? Not many, Luna admitted. We worked mostly with those who showed special gifts, people who could see beyond the obvious, who asked deep questions about the nature of reality. People like you. They continued walking through the canyon, and David noticed that the symbols on the walls were becoming more complex and detailed. Some of them seemed to show star maps, others looked like architectural plans, and still others appeared to be mathematical equations. What happened to your people? David asked. Why did you leave? Luna was quiet for a long moment before answering. We didn't leave entirely. Some of us stayed behind to watch and wait. I am one of those watchers. But most of my people returned to our home worlds when it became clear that humans were ready to develop on their own. Aren't they? David asked, somehow knowing the answer already. Luna stopped walking and turned to face him. Her eyes were bright with excitement. Yes, the time is approaching when my people will return to make full contact with humanity. But first, we need to know that your species is ready for such a revelation. That's why you've been watching me, David realized. You're looking for humans who can handle the truth. Exactly, Luna said. And you, Dr. Rodriguez, have shown exactly the qualities we have been looking for. You approach ancient mysteries with respect and genuine curiosity. You don't jump to conclusions or dismiss things simply because they seem impossible. David felt a mixture of pride and responsibility wash over him. What happens now? Luna smiled and pointed ahead of them. The canyon was opening up into a wider valley, and David could see something incredible in the distance. It looked like a structure made of dark stone, but it was perfectly geometric and impossibly smooth.
How?
Luna said, "I show you something. That will change everything you thought you knew about human history, something that has been waiting for the right person to find it." David's heart began to beat faster as they approached the mysterious structure. He could feel that they were about to cross a line from which there would be no return. His life as a simple archaeologist was about to end, and something much bigger was about to begin. "Are you ready?" Luna asked softly. David looked at her glowing face, then at the incredible structure ahead of them, then back at her kind eyes. "I'm ready." As David and Luna walked deeper into the hidden valley, the mysterious structure ahead of them became clearer and more incredible with each step. What David had first thought was a simple building was actually something far more amazing, a pyramid that seemed to be made from a material he had never seen before. The pyramid was not huge like the ones in Egypt, but it was still impressive, about the size of a 3-story building. Its surface was smooth as glass, yet it seemed to be made from some kind of dark stone that reflected light in impossible ways. Sometimes it looked black, sometimes deep blue, and sometimes it seemed to shimmer with colors that David couldn't even name. "This is incredible," David whispered, his voice full of awe. "How old is this thing?" Luna smiled at his reaction. "This pyramid was built about 8,000 years ago, during one of the most important periods of cooperation between my people and yours." As they got closer, David began to notice details that made his archaeological training kick into high gear. The pyramid's surface wasn't completely smooth. It was covered with intricate symbols and patterns that seemed to move and shift when he looked at them directly. The symbols were similar to the ones he had seen in the canyon, but these were far more complex and detailed. "The symbols are moving," David said, rubbing his eyes. "Are they supposed to do that?" "They respond to the presence of those who are ready to understand them," Luna explained. "The pyramid is not just a building, it's a living repository of knowledge. It was designed to interact with anyone who approaches it with genuine curiosity and respect." David pulled out his camera to take pictures, but when he looked at the screen, all he saw were blurry, distorted images. "My camera isn't working properly," he said, frustrated. "The pyramid exists partially in what your people would call another dimension," Luna said gently. "Your electronic devices cannot capture its true nature, but your mind can, and that's what matters." They walked around the base of the pyramid, and David was amazed by what he saw. Each side of the structure was covered with different types of symbols. One side seemed to show star maps with planets and constellations. Another side displayed what looked like mathematical equations and geometric patterns. The third side showed images of people working together, humans and beings that looked like Luna. "What's on the fourth side?" David asked as they approached. Luna's expression became more serious. "That side shows the future. But it only reveals itself to those who are truly ready to accept the responsibility that comes with such knowledge." When they reached the fourth side, David saw that it was covered with symbols that seemed to pulse with their own inner light. But unlike the other sides, these symbols were constantly changing and shifting as if they were showing different, possible futures. "This is where we enter," Luna said, pointing to what looked like a perfectly smooth section of the pyramid's base. "But first, you must understand what you're about to see inside." David sat down on a nearby rock to listen. The morning sun was getting warmer, and he could feel sweat beginning to form on his forehead. But his excitement overrode any physical discomfort. "Inside this pyramid," Luna continued, "my people stored some of their most important knowledge. Not just information about science and technology, but wisdom about how to live in harmony with the universe. They knew that someday, when humanity was ready, someone would come who could understand and use this knowledge responsibly." "And you think I'm that person?" David asked, feeling both honored and terrified. "I think you could be," Luna replied. "But the pyramid itself will be the final judge. You see, this structure was designed to test anyone who enters it. It will read your heart and mind to determine if you're ready for what lies inside. David looked up at the towering pyramid. What happens if I'm not ready? Then you will see. Only what you expect to see, empty rooms and meaningless symbols. You will leave thinking you've discovered an interesting archaeological site, but nothing more. The deeper knowledge will remain hidden from you. And if I am ready, Luna's eyes sparkled with excitement, then you will gain access to knowledge that could change the course of human history. You will learn about technologies that could solve your planet's energy problems. You will discover the locations of other hidden sites around the world. And most importantly, you will understand humanity's true place in the cosmic community. David stood up and walked closer to the pyramid. As he approached, the symbols on its surface began to glow brighter, and he could feel a strange energy. In the air around him, it was like standing next to a powerful generator, but instead of electricity, this energy felt warm and welcoming. There's something else you need to know, Luna said, joining him at the base of the pyramid. This pyramid doesn't just contain knowledge from my people. It also holds the collective wisdom of the humans who worked with us. Your ancestors contributed just as much to what's stored inside as mine did. David reached out his hand toward the pyramid's surface, but stopped just short of touching it. So this is really a collaboration between our species? Exactly. Luna nodded. That's why it's so important that a human be the one to open it. The pyramid recognizes the genetic and spiritual signatures of both our peoples. It won't fully activate for me alone. It needs someone with human DNA and human consciousness to unlock its deepest secrets. David's hand was still hovering inches from the pyramid's surface. He could feel warmth radiating from the strange material, and the symbols seemed to be pulsing in rhythm with his heartbeat. What am I supposed to do? He asked. Luna pointed to a specific area of the pyramid's base where the symbols formed a pattern. It looked almost like a handprint. Place your hand there. But remember, once you do this, there's no going back. You will become part of something much larger than yourself. David stared at the handprint-shaped pattern. The symbols around it were glowing so brightly now that they hurt to look at directly. He could feel the pyramid calling to him, almost as if it were alive and eager to share its secrets. Will it hurt? He asked. No, Luna assured him. But it will change you. You will still be yourself, but you will see the world through new eyes. You will understand connections and patterns that were invisible to you before. You will carry the responsibility of deciding how to use this knowledge wisely. David took a deep breath and thought about his life up to this point. He had always been curious about the mysteries of the ancient world. He had spent years studying artifacts and ruins, trying to piece together the stories of people who had lived thousands of years ago.
Oh.
He was being offered the chance to learn truths that no modern human had ever known. The people who built this, David said, they trusted that someday someone would come who could handle this responsibility. They believed in the potential of humanity, Luna replied. They believe that despite all your struggles and conflicts, your species has the capacity for wisdom and growth. They built this pyramid as a gift to their descendants to you. David looked at Luna, then at the glowing pyramid, then back at the handprint-shaped pattern that seemed to be waiting for him. In his heart, he knew that this was the moment his entire life had been leading up to. All his years of study, all his curiosity about the past, all his dreams of making a discovery that would change everything, it had all brought him to this moment. Okay, he said quietly. I'm ready. He placed his palm firmly against the handprint pattern and immediately felt a surge of energy flow through his entire body. The pyramid began to hum with a deep, resonant sound that seemed to come from the very core of the earth itself. And then, something incredible happened. A doorway began to appear where none had existed before. The moment David's palm touched the pyramid's surface, everything changed. The warm energy that had been gently flowing around the structure suddenly became a powerful current that surged through his entire body. It wasn't painful, but it was overwhelming, like being struck by lightning made of pure knowledge and understanding. David's vision blurred for a moment. And when it cleared, he found himself looking at the world through completely different eyes. Colors seemed brighter and more vivid than before. He could see details in the distance that should have been impossible to make out. Even the air itself seemed to sparkle with tiny points of light that danced and swirled around him. What's happening? To me, David gasped, his voice sounding strange to his own ears. Luna placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. The pyramid is awakening. It's been waiting for someone like you for thousands of years. Don't fight the sensations. Let them flow through you. The symbols on the pyramid's surface were now glowing so brightly that they seemed to be made of pure light. David could feel them calling to him, one sharing fragments of stories and knowledge that had been stored for countless generations. The mathematical equations made perfect sense to him now, even though he had never been particularly good at advanced math. The star maps showed him the locations of planets and civilizations that existed far beyond Earth. Then, right before his eyes, the solid stone wall of the pyramid began to shimmer and change. The surface became transparent, like looking through clear water. And David could see that the pyramid was much larger inside than it appeared from the outside. Chambers and corridors stretched out in all directions, some going deep underground, others rising up into spaces that seemed to exist in dimensions beyond normal reality. "This is impossible," David whispered, his scientific mind struggling to process what he was seeing. "The inside is bigger than the outside. Your people have a saying," Luna said with a smile. "Any technology advanced enough will seem like magic. To those who don't understand it, this pyramid exists in multiple dimensions at once. What you're seeing is only the beginning." As David watched in amazement, a doorway began to form in the solid wall right in front of them. The stones seemed to melt away like ice in warm water, revealing a corridor that glowed with the same soft light that surrounded Luna. The walls of the corridor were covered with symbols that moved and shifted, telling stories of ancient times. When humans and Luna's people worked together to create wonders. "Should we go in?" David asked, his voice barely above a whisper. Luna nodded. "The pyramid has accepted you. It wants to share its secrets with you. But remember, once you step inside, you will see things that will challenge everything you thought you knew about reality." David took a deep breath and stepped through the doorway. Hold. The moment his foot crossed the threshold, he felt another surge of energy, gentler this time, but still powerful. The corridor stretched out in front of them, and David could see that it led to a large chamber filled with what looked like floating crystals that pulsed with their own inner light. As they walked down the corridor, David noticed that the symbols on the walls were telling a story. They showed the history of Luna's people's visits to Earth, first contact with early humans, and the amazing things they had built together. David saw images of the Great Pyramids being constructed, not by thousands of slaves dragging massive stones, but by small groups of humans and beings like Luna, using technology that made the stones float through the air. "The pyramids in Egypt," David said, stopping to examine one particular set of symbols. "They were built using your technology," partly Luna confirmed. "But the most important ingredient was human creativity and determination. My people provided the tools, but your ancestors provided the vision and the will to create something that would last for thousands of years." They continued deeper into the pyramid, and David began to experience something that felt like memories that weren't his own. He saw himself standing in ancient temples, working alongside people who had lived thousands of years ago. He felt their excitement as they discovered new mathematical principles, their wonder as they learned to read the movements of stars and planets, their dedication as they worked to preserve knowledge for future generations. "Are these real memories?" David asked, touching his head as another wave of images flowed through his mind. "They are the memories of the pyramid itself," Luna explained. "Every person who ever worked on this project left a part of themselves in the structure, their hopes, their dreams, their discoveries. All of it is stored here, waiting for someone who could understand and appreciate what they accomplished." As they entered the main chamber, David's jaw dropped. The room was enormous, with a domed ceiling that seemed to stretch up into infinity. Floating throughout the space were hundreds of crystal formations, each one pulsing with different colors and patterns. Some were small enough to hold in his hand, while others were as large as cars. "What are all these crystals?" David asked, reaching out toward one that was floating nearby. They are memory stones, Luna said. Each one contains specific knowledge about different aspects of reality. This one, she pointed to a blue crystal that was spinning slowly near David's head, contains information about your planet's geological history. That green one over there holds the secrets of plant medicine and healing. The large red one in the center contains star maps that show the locations of habitable worlds throughout the galaxy. David walked around the chamber, mesmerized by the beauty of the floating crystals. Each one seemed to call to him in a different way, offering to share its knowledge if he would only reach out and touch it. But something held him back, a sense that he needed to understand the full scope of what he was seeing before he committed to learning any specific secrets. "How many people have seen this place?" David asked. "Over the centuries, perhaps a dozen. Humans have made it this far," Luna replied. "But you are the first in over 200 years. The pyramid has been waiting patiently for someone with the right combination of curiosity, respect, and readiness to handle this level of knowledge." David turned to face Luna, and in her eyes he saw something that made his heart race. There was hope there, but also a deep sadness that spoke of centuries of waiting and watching. "Why me?" he asked. "What makes me different from other archaeologists or scientists?" Luna walked over to one of the larger crystals and placed her hand on its surface. Immediately the crystal began to glow brighter and David could see images. Forming within it images of himself working at various archaeological sites, treating ancient artifacts with care and respect, asking questions that went deeper than simple academic curiosity. "You have always understood that the past is not just about dead facts and dates," Luna said. "You see the humanity in ancient people. You respect their wisdom and their struggles. You understand that every artifact tells a story about real people who lived and loved and dreamed just like you do." David felt tears forming in his eyes as he realized the truth of what she was saying. His entire career had been driven not just by intellectual curiosity, but by a deep desire to connect with the people who had come before him. "The pyramid recognizes this quality in you," Luna continued. "It knows that you won't use this knowledge for personal gain or to harm others. It trusts that you will use what you learn here to help humanity grow and evolve." David looked around the chamber at all the floating crystals, each one containing secrets that could change the world. He felt the weight of responsibility settling on his shoulders, but also an incredible sense of excitement. This was what he had been searching for his entire life, not just ancient artifacts, but a connection to the deeper mysteries of existence. "What happens next?" he asked. Luna smiled, and for the first time since he had met her, David saw pure joy in her expression. "Next, you choose which knowledge you're ready to receive. But choose carefully once you touch one of these crystals. That knowledge becomes part of you forever. You will carry it with you for the rest of your life, and it will be your responsibility to decide how to use it wisely." David looked around the chamber one more time, feeling the anticipation building. In his chest, he was about to cross another threshold, one that would change him forever. But unlike the nervousness he had felt earlier, now he felt ready. The pyramid had tested him and found him worthy, and now it was time to claim his inheritance as a human being connected to the vast network of knowledge that spanned the stars. David stood in the center of the crystal chamber, overwhelmed by the choices before him. Hundreds of memory stones floated around him, each one containing knowledge that could change the world. The blue crystal nearby pulsed gently, calling to him with promises of understanding Earth's deepest geological secrets. The green one whispered about healing plants that could cure diseases modern medicine couldn't touch. But it was the large red crystal in the center that drew his attention most strongly. "That one contains the star maps," Luna said, noticing where his gaze had settled. "It holds the locations of our home worlds and the coordinates of other civilizations." Throughout the galaxy, Veda reached out toward the red crystal, then stopped. "If I touch it, what exactly will happen to me?" "You will gain the ability to understand star navigation in ways your people have never imagined," Luna explained. "You will see the connections between worlds, the pathways that my people use to travel between star systems. But more than that, you will understand humanity's place in the cosmic community." David's hand hovered inches from the crystal's surface. He could feel warmth radiating from it, and images began forming in his mind. Glimpses of worlds with purple skies and silver. Trees, cities that floated among the clouds, beings of pure light, who communicated through music rather than words. "Will it hurt?" David asked, remembering the intense energy surge he had felt when touching the pyramid. "No," Luna assured him. "This will be different. The crystal will merge its knowledge with your existing memories, like adding new books to a library you already have in your mind." David took a deep breath and pressed his palm against the crystal's smooth surface. Immediately, his consciousness expanded in ways he had never thought possible. He could suddenly see the night sky, not as a collection of distant stars, but as a vast network of connected worlds, each one home to different forms of life. He saw Luna's homeworld, a planet covered in crystal cities that grew like living things where beings of incredible beauty and wisdom spent their lives exploring the mysteries of existence. He saw other worlds where different species had evolved, some that looked almost human, others so alien that his mind could barely comprehend their forms. But most importantly, he saw Earth's future. The red crystal showed him visions of what could happen if humanity learned to work together with other civilizations. He saw cities powered by clean energy that harmed no living thing. He saw diseases cured by medicines that grew naturally on distant worlds. He saw humans traveling among the stars, sharing their unique gifts of creativity and compassion with beings across the galaxy. When the visions ended, David staggered backward, his mind reeling from everything he had learned. "There are so many worlds out there," he whispered, "so many different forms of life. And they are all waiting to meet humanity," Luna said with a smile. "But only when your people are ready." David turned to look at another crystal, a golden one that seemed to pulse with warm, comforting light. "What about that one?" "That contains the history of all the cooperation between my people and yours," Luna replied. "Every monument, every piece of shared knowledge, every moment when our civilizations worked together to create something beautiful." David reached out and touched the golden crystal. This time the experience was gentler, like warm honey flowing. Through his thoughts, saw the true story of human civilization. How Luna's people had quietly guided and helped at crucial moments throughout history. He watched as ancient humans learned to build the first pyramids, working alongside Luna's people to create structures that would serve as both monuments and storage places for knowledge. He saw the construction of Stonehenge, where human astronomers and alien mathematicians worked together to create a calendar that could predict celestial events thousands of years in advance. He witnessed the carving of the giant statues on Easter Island, where human artists and alien engineers collaborated to create monuments that would withstand the test of time. He saw the building of temples in South America, where human spiritual leaders and alien teachers shared wisdom about the connection between all living things. "Why don't our history books mention any of this?" David asked, tears streaming down his face as he processed the incredible truth about his species' past. "'Cause your ancestors chose to keep it secret," Luna explained. "They knew that if the knowledge became widespread too early, it might prevent humanity from developing its own unique strengths. They wanted your people to grow naturally, with guidance rather than dependence." David moved to another crystal. This one was white and seemed to contain swirling galaxies within its depths. When he touched it, he gained understanding of technologies that could solve every problem facing modern Earth. Clean energy that came from tapping into the natural forces of the planet itself. Transportation that didn't pollute the air or water. Ways to grow food that would feed everyone without damaging the environment. "This is incredible," David breathed. "This knowledge could save our planet. But it must be introduced carefully," Luna warned. "If these technologies appeared too suddenly, they could disrupt your society in dangerous ways. People need time to adapt and understand." David spent the next hour touching crystal after crystal, each one filling his mind with new knowledge and understanding. He learned about medicines that could heal both body and mind. He discovered mathematical principles that revealed the hidden patterns underlying all of existence. He gained insight into forms of art and music that could touch the soul in ways no human creation ever had. But with each new piece of knowledge came a growing sense of responsibility. David realized that he was no longer just an archaeologist studying the past. He was now a guardian of humanity's future. What am I supposed to do with all of this? David asked, feeling overwhelmed by the weight of what he had learned. Luna walked over to a small silver crystal that floated near the chamber's entrance. This one will help you understand your role. David touched the silver crystal and immediately felt a sense of peace and clarity wash over him. He saw himself returning to his normal life, but with a new purpose. He would continue his archaeological work, but now he would use his discoveries to slowly prepare humanity for the truth about their cosmic heritage. He saw himself giving lectures that would plant seeds of possibility in people's minds. He saw himself writing papers that would gradually introduce concepts that seemed like science fiction but were actually science fact. He saw himself identifying other humans who might be ready to learn bigger truths. But you won't be alone in this, Luna said, reading his thoughts. There are others like you around the world, humans who have been chosen to help prepare your species for what's coming. What's coming? David asked. Luna's expression grew serious, but hopeful. My people are returning, not to conquer or control, but to officially welcome humanity into the galactic community. But first, enough humans need to be ready for that revelation. David felt a small device materialize in his hand, a crystalline communicator that would allow him to contact other guardians and, when the time was right, to reach Luna and her people. How long do we have? David asked. Perhaps 10 of your years, maybe 15, Luna replied. It depends on how quickly humanity can adapt to the idea that they are not alone in the universe. David looked around the crystal chamber one last time, trying to memorize every detail. Will I be able to come back here? The pyramid will always be here for you, Luna assured him. But more importantly, all of this knowledge is now part of you. You carry the wisdom of both our peoples within your mind and heart. As they walked back toward the entrance, David felt the pyramid beginning to seal itself once again. The doorway they had entered through was already becoming translucent, preparing to return to its hidden state. One more thing, Luna said as they stepped outside into the desert morning. Remember that the greatest power in the universe is not technology or knowledge. It's the choice to use what you have in service of others. David watched as the pyramid faded from view, becoming invisible once again to all but those who knew its true nature. He looked at the communicator in his hand, then at Luna's kind face. Will I see you again? When you're ready, and when your people are ready, Luna replied. Till then, trust in yourself and in the knowledge you now carry. As Luna's ship rose silently into the sky and disappeared among the stars, David stood alone in the desert. But he didn't feel alone. He felt connected to something vast and wonderful, a community of beings spread across the galaxy who all shared the same hope for peace, knowledge, and cooperation. David Rodriguez, the archaeologist, had entered the pyramid. David Rodriguez, the guardian of humanity's future, had emerged. His real work was just beginning,